Hello YouTube and welcome to the nation of free to play. I'm Mr. Mondstadt and boy I am so excited. The Genshin Impact 6.0 special program livestream just ended and I could not be more hyped for Nod Krai. The new quest, map and of course the characters all look so good. F2Ps like me will have a really tough time, but that's why I'm here today. The banners for version 6.0 were just announced and let's just say there are a lot of characters you could spend your primos on. Flins, Lauma, Yelan, Nahida and a Sumeru Chronicled Wish with Nilou, Wanderer, Sino, Alhaitham, Tainari and Daya. Damn! In this video I will talk about the kits of Flins, Lauma and Aino, as well as the value of all of the units that will be on banner during 6.0. Let's go! Starting out with Flins. He is the first tall male 5-star character since Risley's release in 4.1, and if that is not reason enough to wish for him already, listen up. Flins is an electro DPS who uses a polearm as his weapon of choice. His kit centers around the new lunar charge reaction and therefore he has some similarities with Nefer, but from the start. His normal attacks in itself are nothing super spectacular as he will strike enemies with his lance. However, things get more interesting with his elemental skill. After using his skill, Flins will enter a special state that has 3 effects on him. First, his normal attacks are now infused with Electro and this effect cannot be overwritten. Second, he gains interruption resistance, and third, he now has access to a special skill. If you use this special skill, he will deal AoE electro damage to enemies and replace his normal elemental burst with a special elemental burst for the next couple of seconds. In order to understand this part of his kit, let's talk about his normal burst first. With his burst, Flins will unleash the power of his lantern, dealing 2 small and 1 big hit of AoE electro damage that is counted as lunar charge damage and with that ignores defense. Also, if you have more than 1 Nod Krai character in your party, he will deal additional hits with his burst. Flint's special burst after his special skill is similar to this, but will only deal 1 instance of lunar charge damage. However, to make up for that, this special burst will consume way less energy, which means you should be able to use it more often. Overall, this mechanic is similar to Veressa's 2 versions of her burst, and even though we do not know his best rotations yet for Veressa, the special burst turned out to be her optimal gameplay. Moving on to Flint's passives. He shares 1 passive talent with Nefer. When a party member triggers an electro charge reaction, it will be replaced with a lunar charge reaction and he can buff that reaction based on his own attack. He can also increase his own elemental mastery based on his own attack, which should help his lunar charge damage numbers further. With Flins in your party, you will gain 1 moon sign, which is the new Nod Krai mechanic for team building. Basically, for some buffs from passive talents or artifacts, you want either 1 or at least 2 Nod Krai characters in your team to make the most out of all the potential buffs. In Flint's case, a second Nod Krai unit is recommended as his lunar charge damage will be further increased and he will have access to the max buffs of the new artifact set, which will probably be his best in slot. Since there are not that many units from Nod Krai available yet, I expect Nefer to be his best in slot support, but Aino is a free 4-star in 6.0 that can fill in that role for now. Last but not least, Flins will also show you local specialties on your minimap as his exploration passive. Overall, I expect him to be a strong damage dealer on his release, especially with Nefer in his team. However, we are only at the beginning of Nod Krai, so his place in the meta might still change in the near future, depending on the synergy with upcoming characters. Now, let's take a closer look at Lauma. Lauma is a Dendro 5-star catalyst and looks like a long-awaited buff to the Dendro element. Just as Nefer and Flins can trigger the lunar charge reaction, Lauma can trigger the lunar-bloom reaction. Now, what is that? If a party member triggers the bloom reaction while Lauma is in your party, it will be converted into lunar-bloom. This might enable new meta Dendro teams, but let's start with her normals. Lauma performs up to 3 attacks in a row, and since she is a catalyst, obviously these attacks deal Dendro damage. With her charged attack, she will enter her spirit deer form, which allows her to move faster and looks like a nice bonus for exploration. Her elemental skill has 2 forms. The first one is if you tap her skill, which will result in some AoE Dendro damage. However, you basically never want to tap her skill, but hold it. If you do so, all Verdant Dew stacks will be consumed, the max being 3, and you get these Verdant Dew stacks if your party triggers lunar-bloom reactions, which should happen on its own as long as you run Lauma with some form of hydro application. With her whole skill, she will then deal 1 instance of Dendro damage and 1 that counts as lunar-bloom damage. In addition to that, enemies that are hit by this ability will have their Dendro and Hydro resistance decreased. How much will probably depend on the talent level of Lauma's skill, but it should be a nice buff to your team's damage, especially when paired with the Deepwood Memory set. Moving on to her Elemental Burst, Lauma will gain Pale Hymn stacks, which will be consumed whenever a party member deals Bloom, Hyperbloom, Burgeon or Lunar-bloom damage. The benefit of this mechanic is that these instances of damage will be then increased because of Lauma, so basically additional damage to your reactions. Her passives do have some similarities to Flin's as well. With her on the party, the moon sign will be increased by 1 and she can buff the lunar-bloom damage of the party, just like Ineffa and Flins can buff that for lunar charge damage. Lauma also shows local specialties on your minimap while exploring Nod Krai, and will also gain one of the following effects based on how many Nod Krai characters are in your party. First, if you only have her as the sole Nod Krai unit in your party, Bloom, Hyperbloom and Burgeon hits will get the ability to crit. Overall, this is a similar effect like Nahida's Constellation 2. Second, if you have more than 1 Nod Krai unit in your party, lunar-bloom crit will be increased. Apparently you will get either 1 or 2, but not both buffs at the same time, which sounds like, right now, Lauma is probably the only Nod Krai unit in your party, because neither Flins, Ineffa or Aino would benefit much of the lunar-bloom buff. However, Neffa looks like she could be an upcoming Dendro character that might benefit from this passive. Of course, we will have to wait and see, but recent patterns show that Hoyo usually releases the support before the damage dealer, Escoffier and Skirk, Ineffa and Flins, and maybe Lauma and Neffa. But again, this is just speculation right now. Overall, Lauma sounds like a very good upgrade to Dendro teams that use some form of bloom damage, so Hyperbloom, Burgeon and also Nilubloom should be stronger with her. This might also be the reason for the Sumeru Chronicle, but before I will get into that, I want to briefly talk about Aino. Aino is a 4-star character and will be given for free, just like Kachina in Natan. While she will probably not be game breaking, she is going to be the first Hydro Claymore character in Genshin, and with that is already special. Her kit is rather simple and her normal attacks will probably not be of too much importance. With her skill, she tosses a Muse Catcher forward and will be dragged along, dealing Hydro damage to enemies upon impact. With her Elemental Burst, she will summon a mechanical duck that will shoot water balls at enemies from above. The duck will stay on field even if you swap out of Aino, which gives her some decent off-field Hydro application. If you run her with another Nod Krai unit, the duck will fire at shorter intervals, giving you more application. She will also increase the moon sign of your party by 1 and display local specialties. Overall, her kit itself does not sound too impressive. However, similar to Kachina in 5.0, I think she's going to be very valuable early on, simply because she is from Nod Krai and is a free 4-star. So you can run her with Flins and give her a supportive artifact set, probably the new one from Nod Krai, and fulfill your party's requirements without needing to pull another 5-star. So for now, I think she is worth building, however I expect her to lose in value the more Nod Krai units come out. And with that, the new units kits are covered. However, that is not the end of this video yet, because there are also reruns we need to talk about. First up, let's have a look at the Archon rerun of 6.0, Nahida. Nahida is another 5-star Dendro Catalyst user and is one of the best Dendro applicators in the game. She is also very versatile and especially valuable earlier on, as she will make your Hyperbloom teams way better. If you want to spam normal attacks on her and use her as your carry, you can, as long as you have some off-field Hydro application in your party. I personally run her like that with a full EM Deepwood build with Xingqiu, Fischl and Cookie as a free-to-play friendly 4-star team. While Hyperbloom might not be enough for every level of Stygian or every Abyss, it is still one of the best reactions in the game that requires little artifact investment to work. Of course, you can also play her in Spread Aggravate, Bloom or Burgeon teams. You will probably not use her as an on-fielder though, but rely on her skill that marks enemies and continuously applies and reapplies Dendro to them. With her burst, she gives an EM buff and increases your overall damage. While all of this sounds good, we have to be honest and admit that Nahida is no longer a must pull in the game and that she did fall off a bit in the meta. While I would still consider her a good 5-star, the release of Lauma is actual competition for her, and while you can run them together, most teams do not really need both of them. Lauma will probably have enough Dendro application on her own and buffs all the Bloom reactions in the game, and to be fair, Spread Aggravate teams are just not that good right now. Therefore, if you are interested in Lauma, Nahida might be of little use in your account, since Lauma seems like the updated version of the Dendro Archon. The second rerunning unit is Yelan, who just got a new skin a few weeks ago. Yelan is one of the most owned characters in Genshin, however I do not have her on my account. Still, I can tell you that she is a very good Hydro Bow sub DPS with very fast off-field Hydro application, and with units like Flins, Lauma and Skirk, she has a bunch of meta relevant teams that she can fit into. She is rather easy to build with 4-piece emblem and focus on crit, HP and ER. The Favonius bow is a very good F2P weapon for her, and while she is not necessary for any specific team, she can be slapped on so many team comps that she is still relevant to this day. However, while she is definitely not a bad pull, I would advise you to only get her if you really like her character and design as well. By now, there are many good Hydro units in the game, and Farina or Xingqiu can replace her in most of her teams. Personally, I will not go for her on my account, but I would not stop you from pulling her on her banner either. So, usually this would be the end of this video, but we also have a Chronicled Wish to talk about. The Sumeru squad is getting a rerun, and you can go for Nilou, Alhaitham, Wanderer, Sino, Daya and Tighnari, plus their weapons. However, I am not sure whether pulling on the Sumeru Chronicle is a good idea. Yes, especially the weapon banner looks tempting, however don't forget that the Chronicle banner works with a fate point on both banners, meaning you should only pull on it if you have enough primos to guarantee what you want and you really like the character. I did pull on the Inazuma one for my beloved Yoimiya and I do not regret it, but you should be prepared to spend up to 180 pulls on it or not pull at all. If you lose and run out, the fate point will be gone after the banners change, you will lose your guarantee and remain broke. That's my fair warning. Still, I want to talk about the individual units briefly as well. Obviously, Tighnari and Daya are standard characters, which makes this Chronicled way less attractive than the Inazuma one, since you could actually lose to a standard 5-star. Nilou was just revived with Lauma's release, as Bloom teams might be up on the rise again. However, Not only will Lauma buff the bloom damage to enemies, but also to your own units, which means it might be very difficult to play the two of them together without a very strong healer or perhaps a constellation on Lauma. It would not be the first time that Hoyo sells you the solution to a problem with a C1 or C2, so double check these things before you pull. Outside of Lauma teams, Nilou is no longer in the meta, also because most endgame content is single target boss fights. Next up, Alhaitham. His best team is Hyperloom with him as a carry, and yes, you can probably replace Nahida with Lauma to get more DPS power out of him. However, Nefer looks very Dendro-ish to me, and if the trend of support first, DPS second continues, she might be a plain power creep to Alhaitham. Cyno is the third one who will be better with Lauma than without, but again, I do not expect this buff to last very long. Cyno is usually not strong enough to deal with the HP inflated enemies of Stygian Onslaught and Spiral Abyss, so if you want to get him for his jokes, go ahead, but don't expect him to carry you through the game. And lastly, Wanderer. He is an Anemo DPS who has lots of fans, however, I think that Xiao has the higher potential in his elite team. Chaska is way more comfortable to play, and Vaka's vision was a Nemo in the Nod Krai trailer, so I just wanted to put these things out there. Overall, the Sumeru Chronicle feels like bait to me, because Lauma will buff these reactions. However, you would have to get her first in order to actually benefit from these buffs, and getting her plus having 180 pulls for the Chronicle sounds like a very big investment to me, especially with all the other upcoming units. That plus the risk of losing to Dea or Tainari makes this banner not attractive at all for me, and I would advise you to skip it unless you have been saving for one of these characters and you really love them and just want to have them on your account. In that case, please go ahead and get who you want. It is a game and it is not all about meta or endgame. For those of you, however, who want an objective overview of the other 5 stars, here is my pull priority list. But before that, please do me a favor and check whether you are subscribed already, because your support would really mean a lot and helps me in making more videos like these. Thanks. Alright, in the first spot, it is a close run, but I have to give it to Lauma. Her kit sounds pretty versatile and could bring Dendro back to the meta. Plus, she does not rely on a second Nod Krai unit and might still get an elite teammate in the near future, so in my opinion, she has the most potential out of the 4 units. In the second spot, we have Flins. DPSs are always of lower priority to me, but I expect him to be at least pretty good when he comes out. If you have enough, he might even reach top 5 DPS potential, and I'm sure Hoyo will give us bosses that will feel way easier with him than without him, just as they always do. So if you like his design and want to get him, I think he is a safe bet. In the third place, I put Yelan. While she is no must-have character, she aged very well and still fits into many team comps. Also, with the release of Skirk, Nefer, Flins and Lauma, she has very recent 5-star units that all want some form of Hydra application, and therefore Yelan is still a good sub DPS, even in version 6.0. And it hurts me to say, but in the 4th and last slot, we have Nahida. Even though I really like her character, lore and gameplay, objectively speaking, she is the easiest skip out of the 4 units. This is mostly because of Lauma's release and the rather little synergy the two of them have together. Overall, Lauma feels stronger for the upcoming Nod Krai Lunar meta, which is why Nahida fell off a bit. However, that does not make her a bad unit, so if you want to get the Dendro Archon, that is fine as well. And with that, this video comes to an end. I did yap a lot, but I hope it helped you in making your decision on who to get for 6.0. Once again, these videos are meant to help you in terms of meta decisions, but in the end, you should get the character you like the most, whether they are meta or not. Genshin is a game that should bring you joy, that is all that matters. If you like this video, please leave a thumbs up or even subscribe to the channel. Also, let me know your pulling plans in the comments down below. Personally, I got pretty unlucky on Mualani's rerun, so I will have to skip, even though I might do a few pulls on Lauma once I have explored the new map. Let's see. Thanks again for watching, good luck on your pulls, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!